feel free to take the information. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or my mom. I will also still be in Fullerton through Tuesday morning early. So if anybody is local and would like to meet, we're more than willing to meet with you. Is there? And again, I wanted to extend an invitation for anybody who is coming to Israel to come and visit. We are a very welcoming community, and we love having guests. I wanted to ask if anybody had any questions about, I don't know, where we're at in terms of fundraising and, yeah. Art.
So I want to ask two related questions. The first one is, my impression is that Rabbi Riskin, Chief Rabbi of Efrat, is supportive of the project, but I don't know if there's anything more than just general support. And the related question is, what is the community, or are you experiencing any problems, support, opposition, challenges from the community given the innovation that you alluded to?
So, Rabbi Riskin, who is one of the leaders in modern Orthodoxy, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Lincoln Square Synagogue in Manhattan, but he basically founded Lincoln Square Synagogue in Manhattan before he made Aliyah, before he moved to Israel in the 1980s. He was one of the founders of Efrat. He brought over with him a group of about 20 families from his synagogue in Manhattan that helped found Efrat. And he is one of the leading voices in modern Orthodoxy today around women's issues. So, first of all, his son is one of the founding members of our congregation. Rabbi Riskin is one of the reasons we exist in Efrat, because without his support, we wouldn't be able to exist. For those of you who are familiar a little bit with the Orthodox community, without some kind of stamp of approval of some rabbinic leader, you don't go anywhere in the Orthodox community, for better or for worse. And he basically gives approval to everything that we do. So if we ask him something and he says it's a no-go, we don't do it. If we ask him and he says it's a go, then we do it. And we're doing things that are very unusual for the Orthodox community. They're very out of the ordinary. So he very, very much supports what we're doing, and he also comes to our synagogue a couple times a year. Usually for second day Rosh Hashanah, he is always with us, and he's davening with us.
His granddaughter.
His granddaughter, his son, like I said, his son is one of the founding members of our congregation. His granddaughter had a bat mitzvah in our community about a year and a half ago, and we have separate Torah readings for girls in our community for bat mitzvahs, which is unusual for most Orthodox synagogues, and Rabbi Riskin got to hear his daughter. He was on the other side of the mechitza, the other side of the partition, and all the women were on our side of the partition. His granddaughter got to read from the Torah, and it was the first time that Rabbi Riskin had heard any of his granddaughters read from the Torah. So that was like very, very profound for him. It was very much a fulfillment of things that are very, very dear to him. I also heard recently that his daughter is now studying for Orthodox rabbinic ordination. There are now women who are becoming ordained as female Orthodox rabbis, which is a very new innovation that's happening. So I just heard his daughter just started her studies for rabbinic ordination, which is also very a big deal. So yes, the question is, Rabbi Riskin absolutely supports everything we do. The second question, I think today there's less issues. During the initial years when we were in existence, when we were founded, we used to get comments like, "Oh, you're the reform ones," as if that was an insult, because for them somehow in their minds that was an insult. And I used to sit there and laugh and I'd say, first of all, you don't even understand what you're talking about. I'm the daughter of a Reform rabbi. You have no idea what Reform is. So it was like there was a real disconnect there for me. So today, not so much. Today, we've really kind of become accepted in the community, and we are having an influence. So now, it's not so unusual for another synagogue in the area to give women and girls Torah to dance with on Simchat Torah, which was unheard of before we existed. So slowly, we're having a ripple effect. And I also heard last year that there's another, Efrat is very spread out. So geographically, we're not, it's like a long, thin strip. So there's, on the other side of Efrat, there's a community of families that actually are wanting to start something similar to us, and now they've started on Friday nights. And so that's also a direct result of the fact that we are in existence and we are we're something that is now a reality.
One more question. Do you have any connection or contact with the Tova Hartman's synagogue? I daven there sometimes.
With
I think the
Shira
progressive.
Chadasha in
Yeah,
Jerusalem?
just curious.
So the founders of Shira Chadasha came last year for our 10-year anniversary and spent a Shabbat with us, and it was fascinating. They were telling us about their whole process and how their community has developed. So we're part of informal network of congregations all over Israel, modern Orthodox congregations all over Israel that are really creating a change specifically regarding women's issues. It's a very new innovation, and it's having an impact, it's having an effect. So it's more of an informal kind of relationship.
So does the women and the men of your synagogue support the women of the wall?
There is one woman in our community who I know does go, I don't know if she goes regularly, but sometimes goes to Women of the Wall to pray at the wall. It doesn't come up a lot. We're at this point, we're more inwardly focused in terms of building our community, in terms of what's happening in Efrat. I think there's always this tension there, I rarely go to the kotel, to tell you the truth. Like, where I pray is in my congregation. That's where I feel connected. Once in a blue moon, I go to the wall, if there's a bar mitzvah or something out of the ordinary. But I think that tension between, what's happening within congregations and what's happening at the wall, it's different worlds. I don't know what people would say if you ask them. It doesn't even come up really in conversation. It's not...
But isn't it a social issue now that's pretty prevalent?
For most Israelis, unfortunately or fortunately, they have so many other things that are on their agenda, that it's oftentimes lower down on the, priority list. What I can say is if you ask the majority of the people in my congregation, they would tell you what's happening there is horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous. It's like, the fact that Orthodox or any Jew is attacking other Jews is something that is insane. I think there's always this tension. Meaning that, I think we see the changes that we're making less as political changes, and I'm not saying Women of the Wall are doing it for political reasons, but I'm saying we're looking at it more in terms of religious changes. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't political ramifications to those changes, but we don't usually talk about the politics of it. That's not our focus. Our focus is more on the spiritual aspects of the changes that are being created, what kind of role model we're creating for the next generation of girls, which is profound. Most of the Israeli women in my congregation were raised in Orthodox synagogues. They didn't have a bat mitzvah. They didn't do any of the things their daughters are doing. This next generation isn't going to go back to ever going to praying in a regular Orthodox synagogue. They can't. They've seen something completely different. And that's really where the change is happening. And it's profound, especially for Israelis. Americans have been exposed to other things, people who immigrated from other places. But for Israelis, this is very, very new. And half of our congregation are native Israelis. So.
Have you already obtained the land for this?
Yeah, so we have a space that's designated by the city, because all synagogues in Israel it's government land or municipal land. There is a child care center, which the second level, which is not yet built, is designated for public space, and that's the space that we're supposed to be getting. We basically are in the last stages of getting a permit from the municipality, but we can't do anything till there's money in the bank. So the space is there, we have architectural plans, we have a budget, everything's in place except for money in the bank.
Question.
Yeah.
How many member families do you have right now in your congregation?
So we have approximately 50 right now, but our area is growing tremendously. Right now in Efrat there's 10,000 people, and in the next couple of years we're going to be increasing to 15,000 people. And our neighborhood is where most of the construction's happening. So first of all, there aren't enough synagogues in our neighborhood to meet the demands. Almost everyone that lives by us goes to synagogue on a regular basis, for sure on Shabbat. So we expect that in the next year, 2 years, as soon as all the construction finishes and everybody moves in, we'll probably go up to 70, 80 families. possibly more. The sanctuary that will be constructed will probably seat about 180 people. So we're not talking about a huge building. I mean, we're not talking, the size of synagogues here. It's more modest. So
How many synagogues are there in Efrat?
there are 30 synagogues in Efrat, but not all of them have like permanent buildings. Meaning, some of them are meeting in bomb shelters. Some of them are meeting in schools. Some of them are meeting in a gym. Some of them are meeting in people's basements. Okay, but there are 30 congregations in Efrat. So, meaning synagogue life is, a big part of people's lives in terms of so. And in terms of actual buildings, far fewer. I haven't ever counted how many actually exist, but less than half probably. So. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so...
I did have one.
Yeah.
You said that you can't get your building permit until you said you had $100,000+ right now.
Well, we have 160, with what the congregation has raised, what we have raised, it's about $165,000.
But you can't get your building permit until you have 250?
Yeah, meaning right now, we're in process right now to get the building permit. The municipality knows that space is supposed to be designated for us. But the final building permit won't be issued. They're not going to let us build until the money's in the bank.
And the money meaning $250,000.
$250,000, yeah. Okay. The last thing, there's two other things I want to say. Luann Tabak has very graciously offered for anybody who is giving a donation to donate one of her daughter, Robin Tabak, who was a childhood friend of mine who unfortunately passed away many years ago. There's a DVD of her songs, and Luann has graciously offered to donate a DVD of Robin's songs to anybody who makes a donation. I think the DVDs are in the other room, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. And Robin was a big part of my childhood. She was a very close friend of mine growing up. My second daughter's middle name is Rachel, and she's named after Robin. The last person I would like to thank before we end is Doris Jacobson. You weren't going to get out of it, Doris. Doris is the director of community philanthropy at the Orange County Jewish Federation. She has been my guide through this entire process. I have to say, I did have some fundraising experience before I started this project, but never with a capital project, and not that much with private donors, primarily with grants and foundations, and I worked a lot in the nonprofit sector in Israel. Doris has been by my side through the entire process. I want to thank you. She has been my guide, my cheerleader, my supporter. Every time I was like, oh, what am I going to do? She just kept on encouraging me and pushing me on. And so I want to say thank you.
My pleasure. It's wonderful to see the way you've moved this project along. And also, for those of us who love Israel and love to visit Israel, to know that there is egalitarian Judaism in Israel as your community is growing. So I think it will be a wonderful endeavor to be able to daven in a shul that honors Haim and that honors all your efforts.
She's coming next month.
Oh, yeah. And one last piece I didn't really mention, because it's kind of still in its beginning stages, is that we're really trying to also create a relationship with Temple Beth Tikva, where my father served for over 30 years. It's very important for me to keep up that connection. I feel like that was such a big part of his life, and it's important for me for people to come and visit us and to be part of continuing his legacy. So thank you all very much for coming. We really appreciate it.
And there's lots of food.